Welcome back to our channel. Today we're discussing mastering your emotions. Very critical topic. A lot of my followers have asked that we do a video that talks about what you can do to master your emotions. And to really just set that up, let me just say we did a read that talked about your emotions, how valid they are, and how it is important for you not to express all of them, because that's a sign of immaturity. It will get you in trouble. It will get you to places you don't want to be very fast. But at the same time, we also talk about you not keeping in your emotions and failing to express your emotions, because that kind of thing will also get you in trouble too, because your emotions will actually make you sick if you just keep them inside. Also, you may have pent up emotions that will show up, will be expressed at inappropriate times or inappropriate ways, okay? So it is important to understand that you're not suppressing all your emotions, but you also, at the same time, you are not expressing all of your emotion. What is the sweet middle between the two? I like to call that mastering your emotion. And so today, that's what we will be talking about. Your mastering your emotion will require you to do three different things. One, it will require you to be aware of your emotions. Two, it will require you to learn to manage your emotions. And then three, it will require you to leverage your emotion. We'll be looking at each of those in this video today. First thing is emotional awareness, understanding your emotions. What is this feeling that I'm feeling? How do I articulate it? How do I identify it and name that particular feeling? It is very important that you know what you are feeling. You need to educate yourself about what various feelings are. You need to know what the difference between feeling frustrated or feeling angry, feeling happy and feeling joy. You have to know the nuances and the differences between those things. And we'll talk more about why that is important. Secondly, you need to also be able to understand why I feel the way I feel. Okay, what is the cause? Now, there are two kinds of cause I like to look at here. I like to talk about what is causing me in this present environment and in this present situation, in this present to feel that way. And I call the present situation or present environment a trigger, okay? Stimuli or whatever you want to call it, but trigger is a word that I like to use for those type of things. What's triggering my emotions at this point? What is flipping on my switch for me to have an outburst at this particular moment? So you have to understand the things that cause you. Watch your behavior, watch the patterns and things. This happened and I respond this way all the time. Being aware of the cause of your emotion is very, very critical. But what's also more critical is you understanding the cause of your emotion. Now, cause is different from trigger to me, because cause may also be something in my past, something when I was growing up, something, maybe a traumatic experience in my past, or some acute childhood experience that may have wired my brain in such a way that makes me more explosive in a certain kind of way or more emotional in a certain kind of way. It's important to understand those things, the connection between your current outbursts, your current actions, your current emotional expression, and your past experiences. You understand things in that way. To bear in mind that understanding is the basis for control, okay? If you understand things, you can work them better by understanding them. So understanding what emotions you're feeling and understanding what's the cause of those emotions is very, very key, and it will help you to be able to control your emotion and master your emotion. It will help you to be able to master your emotion. Emotional awareness, very, very key. Now, we want to move on to emotional management. How do I manage my emotion? As I talk about emotion, so emotional management really has to do with the handling of your emotions such that it is expressed in appropriate manner. That's what emotional management is. Handling your emotion so that you are able to express them inappropriate manner. We have all kinds of inappropriate ways that we can express our emotions, but being able to handle your emotions so that you express it in a way that is appropriate, in a way that is proportionate to the problem or the situation that you have at hand, not disproportionate. I want to touch on a few things that you can use, a few things that you can do, techniques, perspective, and other things that you can be able to utilize to be able to manage your emotion. The first thing you have to do is to make a switch of perspective. Okay? Now, a lot of people who cannot control their anger really feel like the other person is responsible for how they feel. However, people who control their anger have to flip that around. These people know that they are ultimately responsible for their response. And if you make that philosophical shift, you put control in your hand. It is no longer other people that make you feel and act a certain way. It is now you who have the power of choice to act in a certain way. So no matter what happens around you, no matter what happens to you, you have the power to choose how you are going to respond to it. This is very liberating because it put power in your hands, not in your situation, not in other people's hands. That being said, once you've made that shift in your mind or philosophically, here are a few things that you need to begin to learn to practice. In the first portion about emotional awareness, I told you I was coming back to the portion of why it is necessary for you to identify and articulate the emotions that you're feeling. It's very important. And I told you I was going to come back to it. Now is the time that I come back to it. Identifying the emotion that you're feeling actually does something in your brain. Now, let me explain to you why people have emotional outbursts, okay? You're interacting with someone does something that triggers your emotion or really just causes you to have a certain feeling. That it is your emotional brain that is responding at this particular moment. And that emotional brain wants to act emotionally. However, if at the time you are feeling your emotion, you identify the name of the emotion. I'm feeling very frustrated right now. What that articulating and identifying of that emotion does is it switches the focus of your response from your emotional brain to your thinking brain. Because now you had to utilize your thinking brain to determine what kind of emotion you are feeling at this particular moment. So your thinking brain has taken over that interaction or that particular emotion from your feeling brain and has brought it to your thinking brain. And your thinking brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, happens to also be the region of your brain that is responsible for personal supervision and personal executive function. This is where decisions are made. When that shift happens, you will now move that particular interaction that you are in. You are now processing it in the intellect, the logical portion of your brain, and it is able to now break down the logic of your possible response. And by doing so, it is able to either validate or invalidate how you're feeling about a particular situation, how you are thinking about the particular situation. Because when your thinking is now disarmed, it also will affect your feelings and it quiets you down in terms of what it is you want to do. That is the reason why identifying your feeling is so important. You shift the part of your brain that is handling that particular situation at hand from your feeling brain, which is ready to explode in response, to your thinking brain, which thinks through the situation before responding. That's the reason why suppressing your feelings never work. Suppressing your feelings is bad for you. That's the reason why talking about how you feel is so much more important, because it allows you to really bring it to the thinking part of your brain and respond from that part rather than responding from your feeling portion. So that's one thing that's very critical, that you articulate your feelings. What am I feeling right now? But secondly, of course, it's important for you to identify the relationship, the causal relationship to your feelings. What's causing these feelings? What's triggering my feelings? Okay, you need to identify both of those. So you need to now break the pattern. This is the third point. Okay, so our first point there was you being able to make a philosophical switch. Okay, second was you being able to articulate and talk about your feelings. Okay, either to yourself or to someone, talk about your feelings. Then your third one, therefore, is for you to be able to break the pattern. Now, I told you earlier, it is important to watch yourself and begin to identify the pattern between things around you and how those things affect your emotions, okay? That is to say, identify triggers around you, okay? Or I also said, identify the connection between your past and the emotions that you're having. When you've identified either your triggers or the causes, let's talk about your trigger first. If you identify your trigger, you know that, hey, whenever this person does this one thing, it really pisses me off and it makes me to use profanity, okay? When you have identified that, what you need to do is to now break the pattern, okay? You've predicted it, you've identified it. You can predict that the next time that this person, because the last 7 times this person said a certain thing or did a certain thing, you just went ballistic. So right now you can be able to predict the next time this person does this, I will be going ballistic. But because I know going ballistic is not the best thing for me to do, when this person does this particular thing, I am going to break the pattern. Okay, I'm going to do something more productive instead. So you recognize the pattern, what is triggering you, or how they're flipping your switch to turn you on, emotionally, and you disconnect the switch. All right, we could use another expression: disconnect the switch, or breaking the pattern. There's this pattern of this person's action to my response. Okay, in an inappropriate manner. Therefore, next time the person acts that way, I am not going to do that. I need to think of new ways that I can respond when that person say these things, ways that are productive and ways that are more in line with my values. Okay? When you learn to break the pattern like that, you will begin to learn to manage your emotion, because you are identifying, predicting, and you are therefore controlling as a result of your ability to predict what will happen when this happens, okay? Here's another thing. The cause, relationship between something that happened to you. Maybe it was a trauma, okay? Something that happened to you. I can name my wife, for example. There's something about she has a problem with swimming because, sometime in her childhood, she almost drowned. And because of that, every time she goes in the water, she has that inordinate fear. And so what we've done is we've been able to identify what is the cause of that fear. And we've been able to work with her, get healing for her in that particular area of hurt. And after the healing, she's now a really calm and great swimmer. Okay? So it's important that, you identify the cause, what's causing your inordinate emotional reaction or your inappropriate emotional reaction, that certain things just cause you to just go ballistic. And when you identify the cause, and if it's a trauma or it's something related to your past, seek specialist help. Some of the things I'm talking to you today will be able to help you in it, but there are some of these conditions that you may need more guided and professional assistance in. Okay? Now, breaking the patterns. Important to break the pattern, recognize what's either the causal relationship or whether it is the trigger. Break that pattern. You know this particular thing will lead to that particular outburst. Break the pattern before it happens to you. Okay? Now, once you've identified, you've done those three things, there are other smaller things that you can, well, not small per se, but other things that you can utilize that will help you really to be able to manage your emotion. And we're going to go over them. So we have a few tips that we'll be going over that will help you to manage your emotions. Yeah, they are. Here are a few causes for why a person may have emotional issues, right? One may be acute childhood trauma or acute childhood experience, okay? There'll be various forms of it. Childhood experience, neglect, abuse can really show up as anger issue as a person grows up. Then you have trauma, whatever part of your life, you may have experienced some sort of trauma, and that trauma may also come out in emotional form as well. And then you also may have neurological issues. Here are very common neurological issue that can lead to people having emotion control issues. It could be anywhere from, say, your brain's not properly developed, probably due to malnutrition, but it can also be brain injury or exposure to toxins. You work in a condition where there is a lot of chemical in the air, and that chemical could stifle your brain in such a way that your control centers may be off, and you will do things, just have emotional outbursts and find it difficult to control yourself. Concussions are a big cause of a person's inability to control their emotions. So concussions, if you've had some of these things, I'm naming these things off so that if you had any of them, you can also be able to kind of seek help. And a specialist would definitely be able to help you. Just wanted to enumerate a few things that are likely to be, pushing you off the edge every time something goes wrong. Okay, into some of the few other tips I have for you to learn to manage your emotion. Exercise. When you're in midst of a interaction, somebody does something that really is pushing you to just blow your top and become explosive and just become really angry. Going for a walk is really good. Or sometimes going for a run is really good. And I may be talking about it for anger, but it also helps with depression. It helps with, various other emotional imbalances as well. Learning to exercise on a regular basis or going for an exercise just in the midst of a particular outburst or a likely outburst. Always helpful. Why is it important? There's a physiological dimension to this. Just because when you are in a situation where you are angry, you have some blood flow issues. Blood flow is going only to like one particular part of your brain at this particular point. But if you take a walk, it helps your circulation, allow blood to go to your prefrontal cortex, where your decision executive functions are, but it also removes you from the situation as well, giving you an opportunity to a greater space between stimulus and respond. And in that space, you can always find greater control. So it is important that, whenever you are in a situation and you are likely to do something inappropriate, express your emotions in inappropriate ways, step aside, take a walk, go for a run. It helps you in tremendous ways. Another thing that can help you will be breathing exercises, learning how to just do deep breathing, okay? Because again, when you take time out to do deep breathing, it can help with your stress level. It can help with depression and anxiety. These deep breathing is just really wonderful because it helps, first of all, it helps to calm you down. Usually when you're in an anxious situation, you're breathing very shallow. And that shallow breathing is depriving the brain of oxygen that it needs to really function properly within the given situation. And so when you take time to do some deep breathing, it first of all restore calm, but it also supply oxygen to the brain and allow the brain to function in a much more optimal manner so you can navigate that situation in the way you ought to. Okay? Breathing exercise, absolutely amazing. I want to add mindfulness to this meditation. It's not redundant. I know meditation does incorporate breathing exercise and what have you, but mindfulness is also so critical because it has the several aspects of mindfulness, and it depends on which mindfulness you practice. But mindfulness really has to do with being still and observing your thoughts come in and not engaging your thoughts with judgment, letting it come and letting it go. It kind of practicing mindfulness over time helps you to really be able to engage your life situations almost as someone who is a bystander. You're witnessing what happened to you. And as you are able to live in such a way where you witness what happened to you, you stand back from the situation and you're able to see, you're able to have perspective. You're also able to have space for response as well. And so mindfulness is important in that light, but it's also important. I like this other aspect of mindfulness, of the visualization aspect of mindfulness, where you are able to spend time focusing and imagining alternate realities. So say, for example, I talked earlier about you understand the connection between a stimulus and your response. Like the person does this and you respond a certain way. And you have taken time after noticing that pattern to devise a more productive way of responding whenever the person acts in that manner again. One of the things that will be really helpful for you to do in addition to that is to visualize the scenario regularly, depending on how severe or dire this particular outburst is. Then you might want to take several days and several times a day, visualizing this person acting in this manner and you responding in this new, chosen, productive manner. And as you visualize it over and over, what it does, it trains your brain to be able to react in that manner. It is practice. The brain does not know if you visualize properly enough. The brain does not know the difference between you actually doing it and you just thinking it through in your visualization. So you are having practice outside of the situation as though you are in the situation, so that when you get into the situation, you can execute, you can play like you practice. Very critical. So mindfulness is really, really helpful, really important to controlling your emotions. So last tip for managing your emotion has to do with questioning the thinking behind your feelings. Very, very key. It comes from a much more, elaborate approach in therapy. But to break it down simple, it's questioning the thinking behind your feelings. Why am I feeling this way? What sort of thinking is supporting this type of feelings? Now, the way you think affects the way you feel, and the way you feel affects the things you do. Okay? Have to keep that in mind. So behind every action, there's a feeling. Behind every feeling, there's a thinking. Wrong thinking will lead to wrong feelings, okay? And wrong feelings will lead to wrong actions. So question it in the moment that you're thinking, you're feeling a certain emotion. You need to ask yourself the question, why am I feeling this way? What thought pattern is supporting this kind of feeling? And then you need to question the thought pattern. Say, for example, it may be a thought pattern, I'm feeling sad because I feel everyone hates me. Then you need to ask yourself, does everyone really hate me? Have I done a survey and 100 out of 100 people hate me? No, I have not done a survey. So why do I feel that? If I'm not certain that everybody hates me, then this feeling that is driving me to feel sad is wrong. Are there people who like me? Let me think. Can I name 2? Maybe 3? Then I realized at that particular point that I have very faulty thinking that is supporting my bad feelings. And the moment I realized that the thinking behind my feelings are wrong thinking, I start to replace it with right thinking. Now, everybody may not like me, but I have a few people who like me. And tell you the truth, there is nobody in this world who everyone likes, okay? If we were to be real about the situation. So can I take joy in the fact that I have few people who like me? As a matter of fact, I'm going to hit up my friend right now who I feel really likes me. Okay. So that, and the moment you change the thinking, you challenge the thinking and you change the thinking, it shifts the way you feel. It's important for you to question the thinking behind your feelings. So I'll just identify a few more besides the whole thing about, me feeling sad because I feel the whole world hit me. But there are a few more that I want to just enumerate real quickly before I move on, right? I love to travel, but I have fear of heights. A lot of people do not believe me when I say believe me when I tell them I have a fear of flying. They're like, if you have a fear of flying, why do you fly so much? I'm like, listen, every time I'm going to fly, I tell myself when I'm afraid, I ask myself, flying and driving, which is more dangerous? And you look at the statistics will tell you that flying is way more safer than driving. Now, if flying is way more safer than driving, and I feel safe driving, why do I not feel safe flying? And the moment I start to follow that logic, my fear starts to become more manageable. That's one, questioning the thinking behind your emotions, right? Here's another one about, you're angry with someone and you really just want to lash out against the person. One of the things I really think about is I think compassionate thoughts when I'm dealing with people that I'm really mad at. And I love the word compassion because that word compassion really just says suffering together, right? Like compassion talks more about our shared humanity, that we all have faults. We all have certain things that we suffer from. And whenever I'm mad with people and I think about the fact that we all have faults, I ask myself, today is this person who is needing mercy from me. Tomorrow, it could be me needing mercy from someone else. So let me approach this situation in such a way that when I want mercy one day, I hopefully can find that mercy. It may not be a complete logic, but it may be more of a humanity, reciprocity kind of thing. But you see what I mean when I talk about, really evaluating the thinking behind your feelings, okay? Really just looking at those thinking, challenging those thinking and changing those thinkings. Last thing I ask myself when I challenging my thinking behind my feelings is, why are you about to act in this manner? What outcome is it going to give you? Is the outcome that this particular action going to give you the kind of outcome that aligns with the outcome you are looking for? Say, for example, like I went to the bar one time and one guy wants to pick on me. Okay. I've come out to have a good time. Hey, listen, we could go pound for pound, right? But what's likely to happen? He and I could end up in police custody. It's Friday night. This is a long weekend. I probably might not get in front of the judge until Tuesday. I do not want to be in jail that long. So how do I de-escalate the situation? How do I manage the situation in such a way that we both walk away with our dignity? Is the kind of actions that I start to model rather than, just. So think about my options. When I think about the thinking behind the feelings that I'm having and I'm about to express, I ask myself, is it this thinking that is moving you to this feeling moving to this action? Is it the outcome that you are ultimately looking for? Okay, so these various tips will help you. If you put them all together, some of them together, some of them separate, these various tips will help you to manage your emotion. Now, it is important that you manage your emotions. But managing your emotions helps you to really have the right kind of behavior to express your emotion appropriately in situation. There's more that we can do with our emotion, and it's called leveraging your emotion, using your emotion to help to improve the level of outcome that you experience either personally, at work, in your relationships, okay? Emotions, your emotion can help you to improve the outcome that you get out of life, okay? But you have to know how to leverage your emotion. Now, by leveraging your emotion is simply utilizing your emotion in such a way that you are able to get result. Now, how does this all work? Emotion, let me put it this way. In order to get better results from yourself, better results from other people, you have to be able to influence yourself or to influence other people. Now, to be able to influence yourself or other people, you have to use emotions in such a way that it invokes a certain feeling in yourself or in other people. That feeling that you invoke in that person will lead them to take an action. You or that other person take action that will move into your favor, actions that will be in your favor. Okay? So it is important, therefore, to realize that, right? Realizing that emotions well expressed or emotion expressed any kind of way has a tendency to invoke feelings in other people. It is important to know how to express your emotion so that it is invoking a right feeling you want it to have in yourself or the next person. So say, for example, motivation. You wake up in the morning and you do not feel motivated. How do you influence yourself to be able to be motivated? What can you do to stir up, invoke that emotion of motivation in yourself, whether it's to go to the gym or whether it's to get up and go straight to your desk and start to work on whatever task that you need to work on? How do you do that? How do you also, you're working a deal with someone and you really need to really build confidence in that person or a sense of certainty in that person. What do you say and how do you say? What emotions do you express to be able to invoke that feeling of certainty in that person to be able to get that deal done? Okay, so we call that leveraging your emotion, using your emotion to solve problems bigger than you are able to solve without it. All right, how do you leverage your emotions? Yeah, okay, it's something that we will ask. Here are 4 things that will help you to leverage your emotion. Okay, 1 is your physiology. The way you stand can immediately change the way you feel. Okay, posture is proven as a scientific There's scientific studies done on if you feel powerless, if you feel afraid, stand up in with your legs apart and your hands on your waist like this, akimbo. And immediately it changes the way you feel. Your physiology has a way of causing you to feel a certain kind of way, okay? So it's important that you're researching and using power postures. Those things are not, they're not myths. Those things are actually real. The way you stand, the posture you have can invoke certain feelings in you. You need to find out which one will do what for you, okay? So it's important you're invoking within yourself certain kind of posture. Motion is so critical. Number two is motion. Motion is so critical in invoking emotion. There's a reason why emotion is an E added to motion, because motion and emotion are so much related. Okay, that's one of the things we said. If you're feeling sad or you're feeling angry, go for a walk. It shifts emotion. Really, really critical. But also, it also helps you to get into state. If you have a motion ritual that you do before you do certain things that are high power and high pack, whether it's speaking before a crowd or whether it's right before a very important meeting, it's important that you do that because it puts you in optimal state to be able to interact in your zone, to interact in a state of flow. Is very, very important. And so sometimes some people will there are various kinds of motions, and I'll share some of them with you in another video, but there are ways that you can just move your body, even like just moving your body in a way that is powerful, like bouncing, like jumping and bouncing and moving like a boxer. Before you go do something that scares you, you want to probably like bounce around like you're Muhammad Ali and just kind of like, do all of the motion of a boxer. Do that for like 10, 15 minutes. Don't let anyone see you. Do it in your closet, do it in your dressing room, wherever you have to do it. Because as you do that and you really, really get into it for 10 to 15 minutes, it psychs you up. It almost puts you in a trance-like state or in a state of flow where you leave from there, you feel more powerful and you feel integrated body, mind, and soul. And you are able to go and execute and deliver on a very high level. It's very important. Motion and emotion. There's a reason why there is only an E between those two things, because they're related. When you start to move, you start to arouse emotion within yourself. You start to arouse emotion within other people. So whether you're talking to other people or you are doing it for yourself, moving will really stir up emotions in you, and it will also evoke a certain kind of emotion in other people. Now, empathy, you need to learn to practice empathy. Now, practicing empathy is very important. Just observing how other people are feeling and just being with them in that feeling. Like if your friend is sad, like just noticing that he's sad and taking a moment in whatever it is you're doing to kind of feel with him. Obviously you can feel his pain fully, but taking time to just be in that particular emotional state with him. As you practice empathy time and time again, it widens your emotional repertoire so that when you get to a place where you have to express a certain emotion, you can evoke that emotion. Now, I call it flipping on the switch. Now, you remember earlier in this video, we were talking about you disconnecting the switch, people's ability to switch you on and switch you off. This time around, when it comes to leveraging emotion, you are learning to flip on your switch to evoke emotions that are necessary and required for the particular task at hand or for the outcome that you want to achieve. But practicing emotion is necessary. Empathy is necessary leading up to that because it broadens your repertoire of emotions that you can be able to express on the fly. And then when you're in a situation and you need to express a certain emotion that will get you the result that you want, you can flip on the switch and express that emotion. And by expressing that emotion, it is able to evoke in the person you are interacting with a certain feeling that leads to the actions that you are desiring. Okay? Now, of course, we can go in depth, in details about leveraging emotion. We'll probably have to do a whole video on this particular aspect of flipping on the switch because, some major key things about just moving people. How do you move people to tears, for example? Like you're speaking to a crowd and you want to, I had a mentor when I was growing up and I was a young preacher, and the mentor used to tell me, Saturday night, he'll call me. He said, it's going to be a 15-minute sermon. 2 minutes into my sermon, people will be clapping. 3 minutes into the sermon, 7 minutes into the sermon, they will stand and clap. He's like, 12 minutes into the sermon, you will notice 1 or 2 people crying. And I'll go to church the next day and I will watch that happen almost to the minute, to the second of what he had predicted. And I was like, how did he do that? But what he was doing is he was leveraging emotion so that he is able to evoke a certain feeling in other people. We'll do a whole video on this particular thing, but I just kind of wanted to drop it here as a possibility in helping you to be able to achieve the influence you need with other people in accomplishing exponentially more than you're accomplishing now by leveraging your emotions. Last but not the least, I want you to always think about a place or a thing that will evoke emotion. And you ever heard about go to your happy place? You ever heard about, think about you being on a beach right now? Yes, those things work. The brain will, the more you get into that whole visualization thing and you get into focusing on those type of things, it will begin to shift your emotions in the way you want it to be shifted. Back again to empathy again, as you learn to express various range of emotions, you get into a particular situation that requires you to express a particular emotion, maybe sadness for example. But you're finding it difficult to kind of pull sadness out of you. But that's what is required in that particular moment. What do you do? Think about the saddest thing that ever happened to you. Even if you are sympathizing with someone else, and it will be more preferred that you are thinking about their sadness, but their sadness is not jerking the tears. Think about your saddest moment. What was the saddest moment you had? And by thinking about your saddest moment, it takes you back to that particular place, but it brings you back beside of this person, so that you are able now to evoke that particular emotion that is necessary for this given task, for this given time, and for this given moment. Okay? When you do that, it helps you to be able to leverage emotion so that you're able to impact other people and get exponentially more than you would without emotions. Thank you for listening to this video on emotion. I know that we've said a lot. There is, so much to cover, so much to remember. Rewind the video, go back and just look at it. Remember those 3 things that you need to do to lead up to mastery is learn to have emotional awareness, learn to manage your emotions, and also learn to leverage your emotion for exponential outcomes. So I am just excited to see how some of these tips will make your life so much better. Share your feedback with me. Like this video, share it with someone who you feel could use information like this, of course, subscribe to the channel so that every time we have something new, you're notified. So I'm so grateful for your support. Thank you.